Hi, I'm Emily Boehm, reporting at the Battles of Ideas Festival at the Royal College of Arts in London. Over 70 debates are taking place here on a huge range of different topics, and 60 WORLDwrite volunteers are filming and taking part. We want to give you an idea about the festival and the issues discussed.
I would say the overpopulation's probably the most interesting one, or at least that's the one I'm most looking forward to.
And can I ask what your views are? What might you share from the floor?
I'm not going to say cull everyone, but I would say that contraception is the way forward.
So what would you say to the argument that everyone has the right to reproduce and the more the merrier?
That they should think of what the resources they're using are having on the impact on the planet.
There was an idea about how if you've released so much carbon in a day, you can pay someone in Africa not to have a child just to compensate for it. It was crazy. It's kind of worrying to think that people think that's okay.
I was horrified in the arguments that basically there are too many people in the world, and especially people in less developed countries need to stop reproducing, stop having children, and not at all considering how we can improve the amount of resources we have, and they just weren't pro-growth at all, or lacked absolutely all kinds of aspirations, and it really angered me.
It's misanthropy in search of a cause, basically, so it gets dressed up in different ways at different times, but of course the agenda really is just to stop people having kids.
There was quite a lot of eye-rolling between the panellists, and then the kind of, I don't know, you could sort of see in the audience as well, there were people that were sort of getting really angry when sort of some panellists were speaking, and it was all kicking off, which is always good.
What debates will you be sharing your views on?
The debate I'm speaking on is about alternative medicine, and I'm against it.
And why are you against alternative medicine?
That you'll have to listen to the debate to find out.
I'm going to get one about opera and one about architecture, and the third one will be chosen by my wife.
Okay, and what sort of interesting arguments do you think will be raised in these debates?
I haven't the faintest idea. I've come with a completely open mind, and I'm prepared to listen to anything.
I like the is the West best debate, because that was really controversial and that, and loads of people arguing and stuff, and that was quite cool.
You couldn't keep quiet anymore. You had to get your hand up. You had to get into it, and I think that's what Battle of Ideas is about. Getting everyone's blood boiling, everyone thinking, having these controversial debates on taboo subjects like rape.
I've just come out of the Should Apes Have Rights debate, which is quite interesting. I didn't really have a view on it. I've been trying to do that all day, go to ones that I've never really thought about.
I was very moved at the beginning when they introduced the Indian winners of the Debating Matters competition, because I thought, what a wonderful expression of a liberal Britain the Battle of Ideas is, of a free country. It's a tremendous representation of the ideas of intellectual and political freedom.
Can you tell us a bit more about the Debating Matters?
Debating Matters is a very different style of debating. It was pioneered by the Institute of Ideas in the UK. You have to win the arguments through logic and reason rather than simple rhetorical flourishes and clever put-downs.
Why do you just see us as consumers? The point about human beings is that we're also creators of, and we can bring about more, we're resourceful, we can resolve problems. So if it is the case that we're pushing out more carbon dioxide onto the environment, then I'd see that there is potential amongst us to be able to resolve that problem.
I'm Timandra Harkness. I'm one of the team producing the Battle for Scientific Evidence strand. We're all very keen to go to the science and kind of get the hard facts. But the problem with it is that it's also used as a kind of way of avoiding actual debate and political discussion. So, for example, you say, oh, well, look, we have to ban alcohol for pregnant women because that's what the scientific evidence tells us. And as it happens, that's quite a tricky example, because the official advice is pregnant women shouldn't drink, whereas the very evidence that the government commissioned actually says you can have a few drinks and it doesn't harm the baby at all. So then that kind of raises this whole other aspect of the discussion, which is that it's partly about not trusting us to make up our own mind about things. It's very much about saying, look, this is the evidence, so stop arguing and just do what we tell you.
So you just come out of the debate on racism in America. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, it made me quite angry because one of the arguments was that race doesn't exist, which completely undermined the debate because they were arguing that racism no longer existed, but if race never existed, then of course race couldn't no longer exist because it never existed in the first place.
I was surprised by how many people were in there initially because it's just in the small room over there and it was quite full.
I think probably the most interesting one was whether funding should be focused on impact or whether funding should kind of have less of an a priori objective, really. I thought that was fascinating. It was something I hadn't thought about before.
Is this your first time at the Battle of Ideas?
It is, yeah.
Yes.
First time.
And what debates are you looking forward to?
Is big society a good society? That debate looks quite interesting.
Will big society work?
I think it could just be for another way for the government to overstep their mark and overstep their powers because they want to control how society should think and stuff. Like, it should be left up to communities if they want to interact or not, and it shouldn't be something that the government should lead.
I'm here for the whole festival, and I've just been to see the teenage pregnancy debate, which is really very interesting.
What stood out for you?
The role of the state in telling people how to be a good parent.
I caught the opening of the "Is the West Still the Best" debate.
The reason why I was so keen that we have this discussion was that I realised that there's a deeper discussion to have in a way about whether the West is spiritually bankrupt, whether it's overly decadent, whether the idea of the West is now completely tarnished. In some ways, this discussion on "Is the West still the best?" represents a kind of metaphor for a discussion on what our views are on progress, modernity, universalism.
And I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to treat myself to a weekend of fun and debate and stimulating talks.
I'm actually one of the speakers on the idea of engineering innovation and whether the constrictions and the constraints of sustainability will actually help us come up with new ideas or whether possibly it actually puts a brake on innovation.
I'm going to mainly see the electoral reform debate. I'm a member of the Conservative Party, and so I'm going to be out vigorously campaigning against changing the voting system.
I'm very anti-conservative.
I'm particularly interested in the one on faith schools, church schools we used to call them. Faith sounds so nice, but actually it's a cover for something quite insidious in society, which is dividing society by taking people of particular religions and separating them out from the rest of their contemporaries.
It was, are we still a classless society, Mr. Cameron? ? Everyone got very heated about it, passionate debate. And it was definitely a good thing to wake me up early in the morning. I really feel like I know a bit more about kind of the ideas behind class originally and Marxist theory, and some people were for it and some were against. So I feel very clever and I've had a nice morning, and I'm going to go and get some food and then go to another lecture soon, debate, whatever. No, debate definitely much better than lecture. Lecture you don't do anything, but debate you can get involved.
You were in the breakfast debate this morning.
That's right, yes.
About language matters. What were you arguing?
Language learning really rewires the brain, how you actually become a more flexible, more adaptable, more creative thinker as a result of learning a language. So it was a good morning. I was glad I came.
And what are you going to talk about?
About the Greeks. What have the Greeks done for us? But that's the wrong question.
Are you...
Well, the Greeks are dead. They don't do anything to anybody anymore, do they? It's not my job to prescribe to you, or certainly not to people who haven't emerged in the tradition of the West. But I can certainly say that there's some advantage, and certainly to people who've been otherwise engaged in the debate, who are asking themselves, is it right to go to war in Iraq? Who are asking themselves, should we practice euthanasia or not? Now, if you want to ask these questions, all I'm saying is you might get a certain edge if you look at the tradition.
Being a scientist, to see what people who are outside science actually believe about how science works and what it
can't say about the world.
It's very good-natured and very, very intellectually at a high level, especially including the comments from the audience have all been very intelligent.
For university students, and that's not to exclude school students, to come to something like the Battle of Ideas is a great way to open your mind. Discussion is a great conduit between your stock of knowledge and your interaction with your society, and the Battle of Ideas is a great forum for that.
I have the feeling sometimes I only have like a certain knowledge, which is like a small little fragment of the whole thing, and it's important to get people together who have like really concise knowledge in different particular areas, and it's like a big puzzle, so we just put the pieces together.
I love intellect and hearing other people's opinions. I love a debate, so for me this was the ideal opportunity because I'm a student at secondary school.
The most lively that I went to, which surprised me a little bit, it was looking at how companies are not confident about putting their own message across, not even confident about making profits, and how success is being stigmatised in contemporary society. So one of the people on the panel, Phil Mullen, he was arguing that companies shouldn't have any social responsibility, that companies' responsibility is really to make profits and to have some kind of relationship with their customers and employees, but it's completely undemocratic to see them as having a broader social responsibility, because that's the responsibility of government. That's what democracy is really about.
If the burqa is limiting the freedom of the woman who's actually wearing it, so what should we liberals do with that?
The feminist debate I just went to was amazing and really interactive and sort of enthusiastic and really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed it. Two of the panellists really clashed. One, her name's Fran. She's doing the feminist website and magazine, and she thought that, you know, she wants to get rid of page 3 in The Sun because she thinks it's degrading and objectifies women. And then there's this, and then the other debater who was from Oxford University, her name was Maria, I think. They really clashed because Maria thought, or was it Mary? Anyway, the lady from Oxford University thought that that we shouldn't be concentrating on things like objectification, and that we should be doing things like going out and sorting out universal childcare.
It's become quite normal to criticize people for going to Eton, you know, sort of as if somehow that's like being a Dracula figure. Instead of saying, these are really lucky guys, I wish I had gone to a school like that and got that level of training and education. So you kind of get the sense that somehow you got this kind of privileged bunch of them, and you forget one very simple thing, which is that throughout human history, real leaders were never like the rest of society, which is why they were leaders. I don't know about you, but, you know, if I want a ship that's sinking, I don't want to be led by a person that's, you know, crapping their pants just like I am, right? Instead of adopting this populist kind of sense of demagogy, oh, you know, there aren't enough black people here, there aren't enough women here, or there aren't enough disabled people here, I think we should say, you know, what kind of leadership are they giving us?
So how do you find out about Battle of Ideas?
I actually saw a newspaper and an advertisement in the newspaper. And it just had about the 2 days and what was going on, and I found it really interesting just that there was an open discussion about something, which you never see anymore, I don't think.
And what debates have you been to today?
I went to one about austerity measures, whether or not we need austerity, other measures, which is interesting because it's never been brought up before. In the newspapers it's how far should we go in austerity or how far should we not go, but never whether we should go down that route. And then also obviously about sort of this whole concept of restructuring the banking thing, and about that perhaps it wasn't Keynes' ideas that brought us out of the last sort of recession or depression, but whether it was actually the World War which brought the economic structure, banking society down back to basics, and we had to restructure. Completely controversial. There are things I've never heard, even there's sort of you don't want to touch almost because you're scared of what you'll cause, especially on the Liberal Man. There's things that people said, especially about religion, which you would never ever say anywhere else because of the backlash you'd get, which is really interesting because it brings up things that especially politicians don't want to touch.